And it is great to welcome now a man who's written a really fascinating book about a financial scam that happened not too long ago. It is called The Spider Network, the wild story of a math genius, a gang of backstabbing bankers, and one of the greatest scams in financial history. We're joined today by a reporter from the Wall Street Journal. David Enrich joined us by telephone. David, good to talk with you. How are you today?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm doing great. Had a chance to read through the book. I've always kind of been interested in finance. My dad was a banker for many years, so I've always kind of kept my eye on what's going on there, but I had never heard of this particular financial scandal. So it's kind of an interesting one. People probably get good interest in what exactly happened because it kind of affects everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It affects just about everyone. So the scandal, in a nutshell, involves something that very few people have heard of, but that is enormously important. And it's called LIBOR, which is an acronym that stands for the London Interbank Offered Rate. And LIBOR is so important because it is the basis for the interest rates that you and I pay on our mortgages, on our credit cards, on our student loans or auto loans. It's the basis for the interest rates that big companies pay when they borrow money, or when towns or cities or states borrow money. Their interest rates, too, are often based on LIBOR. And the LIBOR is compiled every day by a group of bankers who basically make an estimate of how much it costs them to borrow money from each other. And a bunch of bankers realized about a decade ago that this rate was extremely easy to manipulate. And why would they manipulate it? Well, to benefit their own financial positions and make a lot of money off trading things based on LIBOR. And this went on. Basically, no one realized what was happening until fairly recently. But this is something that has the potential to have affected just about everyone in the United States. Less people overseas, but certainly in the United States, where so much of our debt is based on LIBOR, it has potentially enormous consequences.
And what they did it so subtly, the manipulation, that nobody even paid attention, right? They would make maybe pennies on a transaction, but you add it up over, multiplication that add up to millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. They would move these rates up or down by very small margins, but they were transacting every day in billions of dollars of stuff. So when it doesn't take very big movements to make a lot of money off of that when you're dealing with such large volumes.
Now, the guys, and I guess the main guy was a man named Tom Hayes, right? And you got some information on him prior to doing the book from, I guess, some articles. Is that right?
Well, it's a little more interesting than that, actually. Tom Hayes is a mildly autistic mathematician. He's basically a genius when it comes to spotting patterns or engineering computer systems, things like that. He's much less of a genius. In fact, he's a complete failure when it comes to interacting with human beings. He's extremely socially awkward and just a bit of a mess personally. And he was a trader at a number of the world's largest banks, including Citibank, the big U.S. bank, and emerged as basically the ringleader of a network of people, and hence the Spider Network in the title of the book, a network of people that were trying to manipulate LIBOR to make more money for themselves. And I got to know Tom really well, actually, over a several-year period after he had been criminally charged, but before he went to prison. And getting to know him and also his family eventually, it really opened up this world to me in a way that, even though I'd been writing about this stuff for a long time, it became much more of a human drama. And so that's what I've tried to do with this book, is not have this book be about business or finance so much as it is a human drama about how individual actions and, greed and recklessness and hubris and betrayal play such big roles in the business world and in the financial world. And being able to do this through my really close relationship over several years with Tom, I think has given me a really unique vantage point into that crazy, crazy world.
It's a great group of characters, and unfortunately they did something that was that was not good for the rest of us, but if you wrote a script about it, nobody would believe it, right, that these people could pull this off.
Yeah, and the thing with it that I find actually the hardest to believe, really, and maybe this won't be so surprising to you and your listeners, but there was so much political pressure on government leaders and on prosecutors after the financial crisis to hold some individuals accountable for the crimes that were committed during the crisis and that caused so much harm to the entire country and the economy. And what shocked me about this is that this story is the manifestation of what happened in reality. So I think what the public wanted was to see some CEOs be punished or some business leaders be punished for all of the carnage that was caused by the financial crisis. And instead what happened, instead of going after those guys, they went after a bunch of mid-level traders, people like Tom Hayes, who definitely did stuff that was wrong and did stuff that was harmful, but did so in a context of it. They did so in an industry that was this type of corruption and bad behavior was so deeply entrenched and so deeply embedded, which is not an excuse or a justification, but it's an explanation for how they, or for why they were behaving the way they were. And exclusively to punish these guys is crazy. It doesn't do anything to solve the broader problems. And it really, to me, explains why there's so much anger still, almost a decade after the financial crisis, directed at the financial elites of the world who basically got away with murder. And Tom Hayes right now is sitting in a maximum security prison, serving a 14-year prison sentence. As far as I can tell, he is the only person currently in jail for crimes committed during the financial crisis. And that's crazy because this guy is this is not your banking villain out of Central Casting. This is someone who's much happier going home at the end of the day, having an orange juice and a bucket of KFC and watching like reruns on TV than he is. He's not isn't a hard partier. This isn't someone who set out to hurt a lot of people. And again, should he be punished? Yes. Should he be the only one in jail? No.
And what he specialized in, and we've all heard the term derivatives and swaps and all that, and I tried to understand as best I could, but very complicated financial instruments that he dealt with, so people probably didn't pay a lot of attention. They said, all right, I guess that's okay if if you do this or that, but nobody really knows exactly what you can and can't do, or nobody really pays attention to it, right, with those kind of investments.
Yeah, and that's... Well, first of all, it's complicated stuff. Second of all, and I think more important, though, is that this behavior was occurring at a time and in a place where this behavior was basically permissible, and that, which is not to say that it's okay by normal human or ethical standards, but it was the industry's ethical kilter was so out of whack. Frankly, the ethical culture was just non-existent. The bad behavior was so rampant and entrenched in everything the banks were doing. These guys were trained the moment they arrived at the bank out of business school or out of undergrad. They would be trained to basically hunt for loopholes and weaknesses and inefficiencies and go exploit those and push the envelope as far as they could every single time, with the sole goal being to make as much money as you can as quickly as you can. And in that context, it's not that surprising that scandals erupt. It's almost more surprising that they don't erupt, because these are a bunch of really aggressive, ambitious, pretty smart people for the most part, and they're being encouraged to just push as far as they can, and occasionally they push a little too far.
Yeah. Well, it's a fascinating story. Again, it's called The Spider Network, a wild story of a math genius, a gang of backstabbing bankers, and one of the greatest scams in financial history. And I guess, David, this would make a good movie. I'm sure somebody will contact you if they haven't already about that, right?
I'm holding my breath waiting.
But in the meantime, we invite our audience to get the book. Do you have a website, David, you can direct people to?
Just go to Amazon. Google The Spider Network. Go to Amazon. Go to your local bookstore. They should have a copy.
Great. David Enrich has been our guest. A pleasure talking to you, David. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.